beautiful people. Welcome back. This is our 25th episode of Meet the Experts. If you've been with us from the start, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you are now joining, welcome in, welcome in. I am Casey Pacheco. I am the host, and I am so happy to have you. Let me tell you, I have one of the most amazing nurses in Florida. She is just so amazing in this space of palliative care, grief. I'm just going to let her in. Her name is Dr. Lolita Malhado, and she is a force to be reckoned with. Welcome in, Dr. Lolita.
Hi, thank you so much for this invitation. I'm so excited to be with you this evening.
It is such our privilege to get to know you a little bit better. And I know you have sat on many boards and you have actually really spearheaded the work of palliative care. Now, before we jump into it, you want to just let our audience know a little bit about your background in this expertise.
Yes. Well, I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been involved in palliative care since 2007. And it's interesting that when I first entered palliative care, I had no idea what it was. But and I didn't even know that I wanted to do palliative care or even that I had a passion for it. But after getting into the field, I realized that I knew very little, and I went back for my PhD. So I have a PhD in nursing research, and my focus has been in palliative care. And I serve on a few boards, national boards, one being the National Coalition for Palliative Care as their chair-elect. And I'm really excited for the work that they do. And also, I represent the Florida Nurse Practitioner Network, their State of Science, their Palliative Care State of Science Committee. I'm the co-chair for that. So truly doing some groundbreaking things in palliative care.
Amazing, amazing. And I usually don't have people give their background, but I wanted you to talk about it because both for our clinician audience and for our public audience who are not in the clinical field, they may be wondering, well, Dr. Lolita, what on earth is palliative care? So you mind breaking it down for our audience to understand?
Yes. So I usually, when I describe palliative care, I usually give the technical definition. And, as I was preparing for this podcast, I wanted to really reflect on my experience with palliative care. So instead of giving the technical definition, I want to say that palliative care reflects on humanity's core values. It's really concerned with those that have a serious illness and recognizing that healing isn't always possible, but caring is. And so palliative medicine or palliative care really is a deep human response to suffering. And so when we can't fix or heal a person, we can focus on their quality of life and managing their symptoms. And one of the things that I have been involved in really trying to get people to understand that basic or primary palliative care is something that we can all do. We don't have to be a specialist in palliative care to be able to provide humanity and caring and just basic helping to manage symptoms as well as good communication. And that's it in a nutshell.
And I don't want to throw a monkey wrench in there, but I'm coming from, and in my clinical day job, I work in hospice. So a lot of times you hear palliative care and hospice, and people, even clinicians, get confused. What's the difference? Do you have any quick things that you help people to see what the difference is?
Yeah, well, there's actually a lot of similarity because hospice, if you think of hospice, it really focuses on providing that comfort to people that are facing that terminal illness, right? And so when you think about palliative care, a lot of times people that have a serious illness, they may not be at end of life right now, but they have cancer or they have dementia. and they still have symptoms that need to be treated. So I would say that there's a lot of similarities in terms of, they both focus on comfort.
Mhm.
Palliative care is there early on to help people through those stages of that serious illness. And I would say hospice really focuses on maybe that last 6 months of the illness, but it doesn't always have to be the last 6 months. There are people that are been on hospice for a while, but because their quality of life has improved, right? They're getting the care and what they need to be able to help them.
I am so passionate about this because to me, nursing is all about quality of life. True nursing is about quality of life, not so much running after the disease process, but improving the quality of life. I love what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
What, as a nurse leader, as a leader and a nurse and a seasoned provider, what is one thing you wish people truly understood about grief? Something that often gets overlooked in both patients and caregivers.
Yeah, well, grief is just the response to loss, and usually it's an intense emotional pain. And it's really difficult to predict. And I would say that it's different for everyone, right? And I know when I was in school, I learned about Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, but I have to tell you that I have never experienced it that way, right? I mean, it's just amazing that, because it's a profoundly personal journey that people are on, it I've seen people be very glad or they have happiness when the person passes away.
Okay.
But, sometimes there's a lot of sadness too. And so I would say that we, there's no right or wrong way to experience grief. And I think that as healthcare providers, we just have to, be able to meet people where they're at, acknowledge maybe their pain, validate it by saying that, this is a normal experience or this is a normal reaction,
Mhm.
and then just offer some kind of condolence or support for that individual.
It's beautiful, beautiful. And recognize it, for ourselves too, because we go through grief as well. We go through those stages of loss. Um, you've beautifully transitioned from being a clinician to an entrepreneur, and now you're an author. What has that journey been like, and what inner shifts or lessons have guided you along the way?
Wow. I have to say that growing up, my mother told me that I can do anything I put my mind to. And she would say things like, your talents will make room for you. I didn't even know what talents were, what she was referring to. But, and I have to say that along the way, sometimes the path wasn't always clear. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And in those moments, I really had to trust God. But I think that one of the things that I have learned along the way is that when you're passionate about something, that's what drives you, that's what sustains you. And you asked me, about palliative care. Like I said, I had no idea what it was, but when I began to study it, it became my passion. And, I think that in terms of the transitioning from clinician to author or to researcher really stems from that passion. And when I would hear physicians or nurses say things like, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, something inside me would always just feel as though my heart was being ripped out, because what did that even mean? We say that to people, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, but what does that mean? And so, you know, I think another shift for me occurred around the election time when I kept hearing in the media This, had to do with around, the campaigning around the different politicians, and they were talking about hope and joy. And again, I was like, well, what does hope mean? How do we foster hope? Did we lose hope? What is it? And so it really got me into looking at the historical, the spiritual, and also the just the political ramifications around hope.
Mhm.
And I realized that in many ways, people who do experience a serious illness, they want hope. So we shouldn't be taking away hope. And we have to find a way to educate people around hope and how to foster hope, right? And so my work really is around how do we educate? How do we foster hope? How do we build a legacy of hope?
And I'm sure I'm sure all these points are salient points in your book because I'm really intrigued. How do we foster hope? I know how to have hope for myself, but how do I build that and cultivate it in someone else? That's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting because when I started looking at the literature and seeing how hope was used, I realized that it has to do with agency. I mean, there are multiple theories out there on the science of hope.
Mhm.
Some of it is around it's sort of multidimensional or multifaceted, and it's like it's around the spiritual and things like that. But there's also another facet that is around the cognitive, which is it's about agency. And
Mhm.
agency is the belief within ourselves, right? That we can, that we believe that something is going to happen. And
Mhm.
so sometimes, people lose agency, especially when they're dealing with so much. I mean, so much is going on now in the world and the media. But when a person has a serious illness, sometimes they lose that belief that they can still believe or that they can still do something. And it requires somehow providing some kind of advocacy, helping that person to be able to have the confidence that they can believe that they can do something, even if it's just as simple as, they may, sometimes people say, well, I'm praying for a miracle.
Mhm.
And it may just be shifting their belief from praying for a miracle to maybe having some kind of comfort or joy or some kind of peace around what is really going on. And just kind of shifting that a little bit is giving that person hope that they can hope to have their pain relieved or hope to be comfortable.
This is really, really powerful. And I totally get what you're saying. But I don't want to take for granted of the non-clinical people who are tuning in. So I'm going to bring this conversation now because we were just talking about this with the doctor at work. And we were saying, some people, they're waiting, they're counting down the days. They say you have 6 months to live. And after the 6 months, they're mad. They're like, why am I not dead? Because you told me I had 6 months to live. But when you talk about this agency, you're talking about this agency on two different spectrums. You're talking on agency as far as I can choose what I want to believe in, but not so far fetched like I believe I'm going to be cured. But you could say, I believe I can have a good quality of life. I believe that I don't have to go through the situation in gut-wrenching pain. I believe, okay, maybe they will not find a cure for my cancer tomorrow, but I believe that the things I am doing in this moment has meaning and purpose in life. Is this what you're talking about when you say agency, bringing it down?
Yeah. And sometimes it's just a matter of asking the person, what are you hoping for?
Mm.
Right? Because once they tell you what they're hoping for, and you really have to listen, because just to give you an example, I had a phone call from a family member whose loved one was transferred to a hospital that was about 300 miles from their home. She had had a transplant early on in life, and when she got ill, they transferred her back to this transplant hospital because, you know, she just had a lot of complexity to her illness. And the family was really praying for a miracle. Here they were 300 miles away, and they were hoping that they can get all of the tubes off just so she could be comfortable. But as I began exploring with them what they really wanted, what they wanted was, and here's how I found out whether they had agency or not. I shared with them there are some hospices that would arrange transportation from one city or state to another. And I asked them if they had a hospice in their own community, and immediately the light bulb went off. They said, "Yes, I know someone. I'm going to make the phone call," and they were able to connect with their local hospice, and with the hospice that was 300 miles away from their home, and arrange for her to be transferred or transported back home. And she had high flow oxygen on. So they needed to make sure that they were going to be able to manage her care, and they were. And so that hoping for that miracle of, you know, that she was going to be able to get up and walk out and, you know, go back home turned into, if we could just get her back home. And, you know, she was able to participate in planning her final arrangements, and she did pass on. But, you know, sometimes it's, you know, and the family just felt so overwhelmed because they didn't know what, you know, they didn't have the age. They felt like they didn't have agency. They didn't believe that they could do anything to change the outcome, and they could.
That's a perfect example. Thank you for bringing it down, because what you're talking about is so true, and so many people feel stuck or without choice. And you're bringing this light and this hope to them. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So, I wanted to ask you, if you were sitting before some healthcare leaders and decision makers today, what powerful position or call to action you would raise to create meaningful and lasting impact within the healthcare system?
I think one of the things that I would focus on is the humanity and the humility, right? I think those two things go hand in hand. And because of my work in palliative care, I feel like I have received so many gifts from my patients in terms of things that I could do to make my practice better. But I also think these are things that we can share with the healthcare community to make healthcare better. And so, you know, I think that, you know, when the first thing we do is, you know, we take away the you know, when people go into the hospitals, it's really so transactional, right?
Yeah.
We call them patients, or sometimes we refer to them by their room number. You know, so and so in room, you know, 309, and or we refer to them by their diagnosis. You know, the COPD are in there, right? You know, I think that, you know, that strips them of their basic humanity. And I think that, you know, it really is about building relationships with those patients. And I think we've lost sight of that. And, you know, I had a patient once that when I walked into the room, I had my little clipboard, and here I was, you know, coming in, introducing myself, and she stopped me right in my tracks, and she said, "You're just like the rest of them." And immediately I thought, well, what do you mean I'm just like the rest of them? You know, you know, and she says, you know my story, but I don't know your story. And yeah, and that just touched me. It made me realize that, you know, we have to be able to not only listen, but we have to be able to treat people not like they're a disease, but they are a living, breathing person. and we need to be able to somehow inspire that hope or foster that hope and dignity. And so I think that if I was sitting before, healthcare leaders, I would kind of share some of those stories and to see if there's a way that we can somehow create a lasting impact by just reimagining how we as healthcare professionals, right, how we deliver empathy,
Mhm.
and to really practice that and to make it, fundamental in the care that we deliver.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that example. Being on the other side and sitting as a patient, you really understand what that feels like. And it's not nice. It's not nice to be
Mhm.
objectified as just a patient. So
Yeah.
this is really very, very powerful. Well, my next question for you, you have a new book that powerfully surrounds hope and joy. And those are beautiful qualities. They carry deep, deep meaning and power. So, either from your personal life or from your writings, do you mind sharing a few ways that people can consciously invite hope and joy into their daily lives, especially when they're facing uncertainty and pain?
Yeah, I think we have to be intentional, right? Because, unless we are intentional about making sure that we're inspiring hope and joy, we're just not going to do it, right? We kind of fall back into our old ways. And I read an article by a nurse. Her name is Susan Moore. She's a nurse and a researcher. And one of the things that she said is that if we are going to be able to inspire hope in people, we first have to have that awareness about hope, and and to be able to have hope ourselves, to
Yes.
be able to inspire hope. And so for me, it has become a conscious thing. And I'm always, listening and asking the questions about, what gives you hope, or what are you hoping for, just so that I can be able to see how I can help that person with
Mhm.
their agency and advocacy. And sometimes it's just even making meaning of what they're sharing, being able to find a solution for what it is that they're sharing. And in many ways, that's innovation, right? There's always some way to deliver something or to see it from another perspective. And so I think that we just have to be intentional about that, and that goes back to, humanity, right? The humanity and the humility. It's kind of the way I practice. And, I think it's, when you're in this space, either palliative care or hospice, it is a privilege to be able to walk with someone along that journey, right? Their serious illness or their end of life. It's such a gift.
Mhm. It is. And you talk a lot about preparation. Preparation. How do you have hope within yourself? How do you have joy within yourself? I really think that your work is really inspiring because a lot of times we are trying as healthcare workers, we're trying to give something that's diminishing from our bucket, depleting from our bucket, because we're not replenishing it for ourselves. But it's directly correlated. Our joy and our hope flows into the people that we care for and we walk along.
Yeah, we have to be that spark for them, right? Especially when you're in palliative care and hospice, because if we're not that spark, that light, or that, that person that encourages the confidence in them, then I mean, I would want that for me if I was, with a serious illness or end of life. I would
Yeah.
want that for me. That's dignity. That's what dignity is, right?
Yes, it truly is. It truly is. And I cover 8 teams, 8 different hospice affiliates. And
Mm.
I go and I say they're probably like, she is kind of over the top, but I always think I'm not the front end user. So how can I inspire hope and joy in the front end user? When I interact with them, I want to leave them feeling, whoa, I feel really good about myself and about life because they're going into a situation where that's just not there. It's the worst time of their life they're going through. And I just believe that that is the energy of hope and joy can be translated across many different barriers of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's another thing, when I go to see a patient or when I'm leaving the patient, I leave them with a bit of hope.
Yes.
You know, I tell them that I'll be thinking about you, or if I made a change to the medication, I'll say,
Mhm.
I hope this really helps. And if it doesn't, then I'm giving them like, call me, or I'll call you in a couple of days. And then you do it, you don't want to give false hope.
Yeah.
So if you say you're going to do something, then you have to do it, So usually I'll, and I've had patients tell me that they had no hope. They had no hope. And they were just so happy that I was, their nurse provider, because now they have hope. And, and so, so it's really a gift, and I think it's really a blessing to to be able to find your purpose early in life, and to do the things that you're passionate about.
Yes, I so enjoy this. I so enjoy this. I wanted to ask you, after you have had such an impactful career in palliative care, what would what would you love for your legacy to be? For
Mm.
those, the people you serve, and for the colleagues who are new and walking this journey.
Yeah, I would say that my legacy, I would want that legacy to be keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. I
Mhm.
mean, I did not coin that term. That was something that I heard back, and I think it was like it might have been in the 1986 or somewhere back then when I heard it from one of our representatives when he said, keep hope alive. And, I didn't even know what it meant then, but now it's like we really have to keep hope alive, because as we retire and leave the workforce,
Mhm.
we have to make sure that the next generation of nurses or healthcare providers have these skills. And so I would say, being able to foster hope and to be able to share and leave a legacy of hope. And so I would want that to be my legacy, because research actually shows that when people have higher levels of hope, it was associated with better coping, enhanced well-being, increased engagement, and healthy behaviors. And it's also a protective factor against depression and suicide. So, I went to a conference I think it was a couple of months ago, and the person that was speaking was talking about health and wellness.
Mhm.
And then she started talking about joy. And I was like, oh my God, everybody's talking about joy, because it's so important, because without joy, you don't have health and wellness. And so you have to be able to infuse joy and infuse self-care practices to be able to experience that. And so I just think that my legacy that really would be, let's keep hope and joy alive.
Ooh, what a beautiful legacy. What a beautiful legacy. Now, if someone is thinking about getting your book, where would they go to find your book
Well,
about?
it is available on Amazon and all of the different book stores, but you can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Books a Million, all of the different platforms it's available on.
We have a really nice nursing community here on LinkedIn. I don't own it, but I embrace it. I love it. How could the nurses looking on support your mission to spread hope and joy? What are some things they can do?
Okay, well, one of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm working with a nursing association. Can I say the name of the organization, or?
As long as they're okay, I'm
Okay.
okay with it.
Yeah. I'm working with, I've actually partnered with the DNPs of Color. It's a nursing association, and they've their primary mission is to provide mentorship and education and support, encouragement to to nurses, and to also increase the numbers of doctors of practice
Okay.
in people of color. And so I partnered with them to do this 2-day workshop. It's going to be in April of 2026, April 17th and the 18th in Fort Lauderdale. And I can certainly send a flyer to you, so that if anybody in the audience is interested, they'll be able to attend that. And there we'll be offering certification or certificates around primary, or what we call basic palliative care. And we will have one of the, it really is going to sort of focus around the creative arts and how you deliver or how you have these conversations. So hope will be one of the topics that we will be discussing for this conference. It's a 2-day conference, and I'm not sure yet how many CEs will be provided, but it is a 2-day conference, and all of that's being worked out now.
Okay, so by the time of this airing, it will be very close to your conference.
Okay,
Yeah, so this will be wonderful. We will put the link there. I had another question for you, and it's my last question, and it's really a personal reflection for you, reflecting on your years of experience. What is one piece of wisdom or insight that you have gained that you feel the younger generation of nurses, healers, and caregivers truly need to hear right
I would say for me, I was, I think I was kind of a fearful person in a way, in a sense, maybe because I'm such an introvert. I was afraid to speak up or afraid to do things. I was always waiting until I either had the perfect words to say or the perfect thing to do. I would say just do things afraid, because there really is no perfect time.
now.
And I've learned since then that when I do feel a sense of fear or feel afraid, I turn that into excitement, because it really is the same emotion. Because it's like you don't really know what the outcome is going to be, right? So you're excited, or either you're fearful.
Yeah.
And so I just flip it, and when I flip it, it somehow gives me the power to be able to do something, even if I've never done it before. It gives me the strength to be able to do that. So I would say just do things afraid, do things, because there is no perfect time. And, don't wait for the right moments, because when you do that, you lose the opportunity that's available to you. So do things.
Do it. Just do it. Just do it. Well, this was so lovely. That is such great advice. I think most nurses, we are kind of type A personality. We do want that perfection. We do want to execute flawlessly, but just going for it and doing it. And you certainly have, by launching into a career and now being an author of a beautiful book, bringing hope and joy to so many people. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I enjoy you as always, 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 always enjoy you. I hope that you will be back again. I'm going to put the links below to the conference that you're going to be speaking at. But I wanted to say to the audience, I asked Dr. Lolita all of my questions. You know me, I always get all the questions. But you are wise, educated people, and you may have questions of your own. So what would you like to ask Dr. Lolita? What would you like to know about palliative care? Or what has your experience been about experiencing joy and hope as a provider, as a professional, or as a patient? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please feel free to leave them below in the comments. We'll definitely be looking out to hear your voice. If you are an expert and you want to be on the show, definitely reach out to me. If you want to connect with Dr. Lolita, you can find her. I just click the link and you will be able to connect with her on LinkedIn. Just an awesome awesome woman leaving a beautiful legacy. So thank you so much, Dr. Lolita. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, audience, for listening in, and we'll see you next time. Remember, every Sunday at 4 p.m., Meet the Experts live on LinkedIn. We'll see you next time.